Why do you want to be a U.S. Senator?
Well, I think all 30 million Texans deserve a senator who's going to represent them, not billionaire mega donors. Both John Cornyn and Ken Paxton have sold us out time and time again for their donors. And I think working Texans need someone who's going to fight for them in our nation's capital.
You know, let's walk a little bit this way just to get away from the music. You know that this is a dominant, historically Republican state. What are you doing? What do you think has to be done in order for a Democrat to reverse 3 decades of political history?
Well, I think there is a growing backlash to the extremism and the corruption in our government, and it's a bipartisan backlash. I have been traveling the whole state. I've been in red areas and blue areas, big cities, small towns, and I can't tell you the number of people who come up to me at the end of these events and whisper, "I'm not a Democrat," like they're in the witness protection program. There is a deep dissatisfaction to the extremism and the corruption that we're seeing in our politics. And I think we're building a movement to take back power from the people at the very top who are dividing us and bring that power back to our communities.
If you end up in this general election, who's the easier Republican to take on, Ken Paxton or John Cornyn?
I look forward to prosecuting the case against either John Cornyn or Ken Paxton, because neither of them deserve the honor of representing our great state in our nation's capital. And honestly, no matter who wins that runoff, we already know who we're running against. We're running against the billionaire mega donors and their broken, corrupt political system. And that is the kind of movement we're building. You know, the first words out of my mouth when I launched this campaign was that the real fight in this country is not left versus right, it's top versus bottom. So we're bringing working people together across all these divisions, partisan divisions, racial divisions, cultural, religious divisions, so that we can unite together, because our unity as working people is a threat to the wealth and power of those at the very top.
That is an economic-focused message at a time when voters are predominantly concerned about the cost of things and the state of the economy.
Including me. You know, I make $7,200 a year as a state legislator, and so I have to work.
Job, yeah.
I have to work for a living too. And you know, when I go to the store, I'm shocked by how expensive things are. I try to order out from my favorite restaurants, and you know, I can barely afford that anymore. So I'm experiencing this pain along with everybody else. And it's not just the price of food, although that's kind of what we all see on a daily basis. But you add that to the rising cost of housing. You add that to the rising cost of childcare, which is now more expensive than college in the state of Texas. You add that to the rising cost of prescription drugs, including insulin. I'm a type 1 diabetic. These things are pricing working people out of the American dream. And that's the whole reason I'm running. It's the whole reason you're seeing this energy around the campaign.
So what's an affirmative thing Senator Talarico would do to help drive down the cost of things for Americans?
So you should never believe anything a politician says. You should look at what a politician has done. And as a Democrat in the Texas legislature, a Republican-dominated body, I've been able to pass major bills to bring down the cost of housing, bring down the cost of childcare, bring down the cost of prescription drugs. And now I want to take those fights to the U.S. Senate. But before we make progress on the cost of living crisis, we have to tackle the corruption crisis, because these two things are inextricably linked. The reason we have a cost of living crisis is because we have a corruption crisis, because our government only works for the ultra wealthy and doesn't seem to work for any of us anymore. And so I've laid out a comprehensive anti-corruption package, getting big money out of our politics, banning corporate PACs, banning members of Congress from trading stocks and enriching themselves while they're in office, but also forms of corruption that don't involve money, banning gerrymandering, because this is why we don't have competitive elections in this state and in this country. Politicians draw their lines. They pick their voters instead of voters picking them. So I really want to pass comprehensive political reform, hopefully on a bipartisan basis, so that we can have a government of, by, and for the people again, not a government of, by, and for the billionaires.
There's a Democrat sitting in this state, or someone wants to vote in the Democratic primary on Tuesday, and they're thinking about you or Jasmine Crockett. What is the argument for you? Why should they not vote for her?
Well, let's remember that Congresswoman Crockett and I are on the same team. We are both trying to change the politics of this state and of this country. And after this primary, in a couple days, we're going to be working together to do that. But I would say I bring something unique to this primary. I have a history of flipping seats like this, of winning tough races like this. I got elected to the State House by flipping a Trump district in a county that was so red it hadn't voted for a Democrat for president since Jimmy Carter. And I did that by building a big tent, by reaching out to people who weren't with me yet and bringing them into our coalition. That's exactly what we're going to have to do if we're going to flip this seat in
You're
November.
suggesting you can do that and she can't necessarily.
No, I've said before, I think she can be elected in Texas. I just think I have a track record of actually doing this. And that's why I think I'm in a stronger position. I think our campaign is in a stronger position to actually pull this thing off in November.
Real quick, because I know you've got to
you're
say
good.
hi to people. Iran has suddenly become a much more urgent concern. It would be an issue for the Senate to consider.
Yeah.
What do you make of what's happened there? And where are you on the debate over whether there should be a new authorized use of military force resolution?
Well, I think our Constitution is clear that it's Congress that should declare war. And so I absolutely think the president and his administration should come before Congress and therefore come before the American people and make their case. I was 12 years old when 9/11 happened. I know the importance of keeping this nation safe. As a millennial, I saw how military disasters like the Iraq War robbed this nation of young lives, of billions of dollars, of our moral standing in the world. And so I'm tired of forever wars. And I think if this commander-in-chief wants to justify this military action, he should have to do that out in public, and he should go before the people's representatives in Congress.
What does it mean to you to be a Democrat?
Well, I think the Democratic Party is at its best when it is fighting for working people, when it's fighting for the little guy, when it's fighting for the underdog, those who are left out. I was raised by working parents who worked overtime to provide for me. And, I remember them telling me that the Democratic Party fights for the people. And we're not all, in recent years, the National Democratic Party has lost that kind of fight. I think in 2026, you're going to see a new generation of leaders stepping up to take our party back to its working class roots, like we remember from the New Deal, the Great Society, or the Affordable Care Act.
Does it mean being entirely opposed to the president?
No, I think it's working with anyone and everyone to help working people. Again, the fight is not left versus right, it's top versus bottom. So whoever wants to join us in taking power back from the billionaires and bringing that power back to our communities, I'm going to work with them, whoever they are.
Last most important question for a Texan, because the rest of the country's watching this week at what happens here in Texas. We've asked this to the Republican candidates too. What is the biggest misperception do you think the rest of the country has of Texas?
Well, I think the nation has seen the worst from our government here in Texas, the extremism and the corruption. But when you travel this state, you really get to see how our people are a lot better than our elected leaders. That the people of this state are friendly, they are hardworking, they are faithful people, and we need a government, we need leaders who reflect the goodness of the people of Texas.
Thank you, sir.
It's also got the best food.
Well, there's that.